Morning, everybody. I have the privilege of introducing one of our recently promoted executives here, Kristin Wisnewski. So before I do, just a couple things on her and what she'll be describing this morning. I think first, there's 6 leadership characteristics that we're really trying to drive. One is that can we form cross-functional, end-to-end productive squads? Can we actually distribute the work in a far more efficient manner? Can we measure the things that matter? Those are 3 outcome measures that we should expect out of all leaders. Now, there's 3 other ones that are the Achilles heel of our leadership system inside of IBM that we struggle with, and these are the ones I think that Kristin really has really demonstrated, and that's attracting and developing new talent into IBM, listening and learning from others, and having a broad canvas from the people that you listen and learn from, and an influence and impact that goes beyond your own accountabilities. So Kristin leads the visual design and multimedia, so that's user-centered design, it's UX, it's a hot field, it's difficult to get great people, but here's just an example of some of the people in the last year she's recruited from. Apple, Disney, ABC, MTV, Nickelodeon, Dell, AOL, GE, and Viacom. And in fact, we have our videographer, is Sadiq here, see in the back? He saved us $70,000 by volunteering on the last day to come in and help do this. So, and he was one of those external hires. So I think she's done a fantastic job. And of course, this year her team won the Nielsen Award, which is not one that's won by sponsoring money to like Gartner and Forrester and all of those analyst groups. It's by actually doing great work. So it's my honor to actually introduce Kristin. Please come up.
Thank you, Jeff. So this is not where I thought I would be today, working for IBM, managing a team of designers. I actually just here doing this speech. I stumbled into this field when I was a senior at college, and I fell deeply in love. I spent the next 6 months as a co-op. I was learning and practicing and trying my hardest to copy every single thing my mentors were doing every day. Then I became a supplemental and got my advanced degree, and then became an employee. It's been 16 years, and I basically grew up at IBM. So I now lead a team of over 50 designers. It's user experience, visual design, multimedia, and those mentors that I once copied are now my trusted advisors by my side every day. So 14 years into the job, I, in the very same month, was promoted to management and also deployed to Ecuador to do my corporate service corps assignment. So there's 3 things about this assignment that will stay with me forever. The first is that thanks to my very poor Spanish skills and my nervous head nodding that I'm doing now, that I accidentally promised $2 million to the mayor of a nearby town in front of a hopeful audience of press and photographers, videographers, and townspeople. So that was great. And if you ever see me making this face, it is a sign that I've done something terribly wrong. So what I'm doing here is actually trying to figure out how many paychecks it may take me to pay back IBM this $2 million I promised. The second thing that I learned during CSC that will stay with me forever is that I said to the team, when I get back home, I get to be a manager, and my goal is to be the best manager ever. That's what I want to do. And they told me that's absolutely crazy. And especially as a brand new manager, that's completely not feasible. And then the third thing is that the team told me later that the Kristin they met in weeks 2 to 4 was so much better than the Kristin they met in week 1. And for me, this was really surprising and such a total relief, because that meant I can just be myself. I mean, that was me warmed up and acting normal. And they were basically telling me that they liked that one better, and they felt more connected to that version of me. So I was thinking, like, this is almost too easy. I can just be myself. That's cool. So I didn't know at the time just how critical this would actually become in my management journey. So I learned a ton about myself and had a really great experience at CSC. And though I had thought the timing was awful with both things happening at once, it turned out that that was pretty serendipitous. That now I get to come back and return home and step into this new management role feeling more equipped than ever to do this. But the problem was that I didn't know how to be a manager. So much like how I approached CSC during week 1, I suited up and I did what I do when I don't know what to do, which for me means act formal and polished and pleasant and mild and basically just uninteresting and inauthentic. So I was acting. There's this Japanese martial art tradition concept called shuhari, and it basically describes the process of learning and going all the way up through mastery. The first phase is shu, and this is when you discipline yourself and you learn all the forms and you do not deviate one iota. Then the next phase is the re phase, and this is when you actually start to innovate and you try things out and you bend the rules a little bit and you see what might feel okay for you. And then finally, transcend is when you completely depart from what you knew and what you learned and you make it your own. And instead of acting according to the discipline and the forms, you actually just act in accordance with your heart and mind's desires. And this is when the true door to the creative technique opens. So back to me, I was in the shu phase for sure, and I didn't really, didn't know how to begin, so I just adhered to tradition and I began my journey. But I like to have fun and feel alive, and I had to do a little bit of soul searching to figure out, what is it about those best days at work? Why are they so great, and what makes a bad day at work so terrible? And I also thought about all the things that for 14 years I had wanted to change when I was not yet a manager. So I thought about what contributes to a bad day, and for me it was feeling stifled, uninspired, feeling just kind of isolated, detached, and maybe even a little fearful at times. And on my best days, I laughed, I was excited, I felt engaged and connected, and just inspired and proud. So I looked to Fletcher and the leaders that inspire me, and I noted what they were doing. And I looked to my team, and I listened. And I committed to always remembering that I'm a designer at heart, and I'm so fortunate to get to do what it is that I love to do, and to keep designing all the while and continuing to hone my craft. Part of shuhari is this notion also that perfection is a journey, it's not a destination. So I realized, okay, I can be true to myself, be true to my team, and also be a true leader. And this was sort of eye-opening for me, and I made the plan, just focus on the people and focus on the culture, and then the great work will follow. Fletcher told me a story once that will stay with me forever. He said that every leader needs to picture themselves standing at the edge of a cliff with their team behind them, and to know with confidence and to trust that they will want to help you and lift you up to the next cliff, and maybe more importantly, not push you off. So he also said that winning and success is half of the battle, but the other half is to know that you did the right thing by your team. And if you do, they will always have your back. So now more than ever, I started getting really energized about this. This is the culture I want to create. So Fletcher gave me the space and the courage and the confidence and empowered me to just go and try things and push limits. And once I started getting into this, the ideas just really started flowing. And I tried a couple of things, and I'll run through some of them that seem to be working pretty well. So first is bringing my designers into world-class companies like Pixar and Apple and Microsoft, and forming relationships with them too, ESPN and Disney, and we've really got a thing going on now, and we continue to want to expand that. Also trying to always recruit talent from these companies or companies like them so that we can infuse that into what we do. Also even with Apple, we had repeat visits, and in some of them we went back and workshopped an idea. There's an app in development right now that we're working on as a result. So you never quite know what you might get out of it, but it's always interesting and always meaningful. What you're seeing here on the screen is when we came back from Pixar, we were so inspired. We loved watching just listening and learning from them, looking at their animator studios, exchanging best practices and talking about what troubles us, and really finding so much commonality that we didn't even expect. So we came home and we decided, let's read Creativity Inc. as part of a book club. We talked about it on our design guilds. We focused on all the quotes that we loved the most, and then being designers, we created this image, which then we turned into a notebook cover and distributed it to the designers. Then I ended up running into one of the Pixarians we had met on our trip and showed him. He thought it was cool, and he asked for the source file. And then a couple weeks later, I arrived home to a large tube on my doorstep. Inside is this rendition, a poster-size, movie-style poster of our notebook, and it was signed by Ed Catmull himself, the author and the CEO of Disney and Pixar. And this nice note saying that he was actually really touched that we had gone out of our way through the trouble of doing this, and that we really enjoyed the book. So we also, I'm committed to sending designers to these industry-leading conferences. That's how we know what's going on, and we stay fresh and current, and we get to connect with the world and get more invites to cool companies. So we do this all the time. This is Lisa, one of our designers. She's at the Adobe Max conference just this past November. And I think trusting my team and giving them the freedom and the actually blocking the time for them to have some space to innovate and think about all these big design dreams that we've always had, and be able to actually use some of that time to take some of those design hills. And sometimes this doesn't work, and we might try something that it just doesn't work, but we failed quickly, and that's part of it, and it's fine, and nobody's afraid to do that. And then sometimes when it does work, you get something really amazing at the other end. So for example, we're working right now on our internal design system, and it was one of these ideas, and we're about to push it into MVP pretty soon, and it will make a good difference internally. And so when it works really well, and if not, that's okay too, and we'll just always keep trying, and we're always experimenting. And it might not sound like such a huge deal to have time set aside in schedules, but for me, I feel like that's where the magic happens. If you give people a little bit of space and you empower them to just go and create, you will often be astonished with what you get back. We're also embracing a lot of new ways for collaboration. We're all over video and Zoom and Slack and Jira, of course, and we're constantly interacting, both personally and professionally, so we end up feeling really bonded. We had this idea to do an all-day video day where we're just working, but because there's so many of us, we're not sitting side by side, but this felt like a shoulder-to-shoulder thing. And honestly, I wasn't sure. I was a little nervous about this one because it's agenda-less by nature, and I'm an agenda person, so didn't know how this was going to go, but it turned out that it wasn't exactly what we all expected, but we did a retro after. We found a couple of things that we would tweak about it, and now it's been instantiated as part of our normal process. I like to block calendar time for my people just to be sure that that I'm protecting them as much as possible and giving them the time to think and create and process. We also host team retreats. To me, this is something that is a great opportunity to show people that they're valued and to make them feel special. And also, another thing that I found is important is making sure that the passion and the interest are aligning with the projects that people work on. That's where you're going to get the best work, and that's where you also get the happiest, most engaged employee. So all of this has led to a really good result. I see a lot of joy on my team. We're all engaged and passionate and just really devoted to being bonded together and trying new things and making IBM a truly design-infused organization day by day. We really are committed to doing that. We have an obsessive focus on detail, and we just want to fix and change and make everything better. And some of the results that have come from that, you've seen the intranet, the new blue pages. We have infused a whole user experience approach into the Mac at IBM program, the PC at IBM program, the Think desks that you're seeing popping up. We had designed the setup of, and the emails. You may have noticed you're seeing hopefully some more emails come through that are looking a little better these days, and videos and posters and all this. So there's so many things that are happening, and it's a really exciting time for design. Like Jeff said, we had recently won the Nielsen Norman Group Best Design Award for the intranet. And I mean, of course, the reward is in the work that you do and the experience that you have as you're doing that, but this was a nice surprise, unexpected, and a real treat for the entire team. So we also tried some new things that we're doing now regularly. We introduced a continuous design delivery model, and this is really operationalizing design, which hadn't been done before, but now it makes so much sense to us. So we put all of our ad hoc design requests that come through in Jira. We track them in our monthly ops deck, and we make this fun, pretty calendar each month, and it always has a theme and looks different. And it's just a way to showcase the work that's going on. And it's also, I think, a good example of two things. One is the ability for us to scale our practice and offer it well beyond just workplace as a service, just CIO. And it's also a good example of how we're moving these days from DevOps to design of DevOps and truly infusing design into everything we do. So we're basically always trying to look for ways to, how can we create beautiful, meaningful, enjoyable experiences for IBMers? And this is one example. We created this bag. It was just for ourselves, but we like it. We distributed it at our most recent retreat. That's Thomas Watson, featured prominently. And we stuffed it with the Pixar book and a couple of other goodies, just as an example of how we like to make people feel special. Speaking of, Fletcher always says that feedback is a gift. My team took this quite literally at the end of last year and created an end-of-year present for me. And everybody was invited to contribute a page. And there were no specifications whatsoever. It was only that you had to make it be 8 by 8. That was it. And otherwise, whatever you wanted. And it was a pretty amazing thing that was completely unexpected. You can see just in looking at only 4 pages here, what a difference. You can't find 2 pages that are even remotely similar, because it was left to the individual, and we've got so much diversity on our team, both in thought and approach, and a lot of different style, and it shines through the work, both here in the book and also every single day as people are working on these projects. You're seeing all of this uniqueness come out, and it's being embraced today more than it ever has been, and it's really special to see. So it was really unexpected. It was completely heartfelt. I cried, and I cried on Zoom, and everybody got to see me going in from box to box as I went and hugged those in the room. And one of my designers likes to say that our goal as designers is to put a smile in the hearts of others. And I can definitely say that that day, my heart smiled. The beautiful Shiuhari image that I've been showing, that was actually the very first page of the book, and it was hand-painted by one of our designers. I like to think that we're now in the phase of transcend, or as I say to my team, be weird. So this is not just my story. This is the story of my team. It's the story of design. Design has always been important to IBM. It's just never as important as it is these days, and never like this. But to me, when you focus on the people that you work with and the people that you design for, you end up creating great experiences. And I'm really looking forward to another year of great experiences, and where people feel empowered and free to create and valued. And of all of my 16 years, I have to say that this is the best IBM I've ever known. Thank you.
Pretty terrific, huh? Well done. I would say there's a few inaccuracies in her presentation. She did allude to Fletcher's tutelage. Actually, it was Fletcher's boss that really helped quite a bit out. And